Welcome to Universal God, Message of Peace. And I'm Lee Weissman, and that is Lale Tuncer. And today we're going to be talking about free will. Not a small topic, not an easy topic, but I think one that all of us have studied. When we touched upon it last week, we were talking to each other. We really, we kind of ran up against it. And so I thought, okay, this week we'll talk about free will. So I'm going to start out with a story about free will. So there was a very famous rabbi, lived at the end of the 18th century, early 19th century, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. And there's a story that's told about him that somebody once came a very, very, very long way to ask him about free will. And he walked in and he said, Rabbi, please tell me, what is the secret of free will? How does free will work? The Rebbe closed his eyes. Oh, he thought. He opened his eyes and he says, if you want to do it, do it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. And the guy was like, I traveled miles and miles and miles and miles, and that is like all you got. That's it. That's the whole secret. Really, that's it. And he said, "Oh, there's one thing.
Mhm.
You have to know what you really want. You
That's
have
so
to know what you really want." Right? Very often, when we talk about free will, one of the problems is we we don't necessarily know what we really want. But so having said that, free will is really the found in some sense the foundation of all moral behavior, right? I mean, it's the foundation of ethics, it's the foundation of religion, it's the foundation of everything. And really, it's really fundamental to what it is to be a human being. And when it says in the Torah that we are B'Tselem Elohim, that we are in the image of God, one way to understand that is that we have free will, right? Right? God has will, God has discretion over the world, and He has given to us the ability to choose, the ability to choose between good and bad, between right and wrong, and also just to choose our path in life, which direction we're going to take. And that's an amazing power. It's an amazing power and a huge responsibility that we have. Um, and yet, you know, and yet all of us have a sense that there are so many forces working upon us, um, that that influence our life, which are not in our free will. Rav Dessler, who was a British, a famous British rabbi, put it this way. So said, imagine you want to get married, right? You want to get married. So who are your marriage choices? Well, you could say half the population of the world.
Mhm.
Okay, that's right. I mean, if you're right, heterosexual, half the population of the world. Well, is that really true? Well, no, because I'm going to marry between certain age and certain age. Okay, so now you've cut that down, to 30% of the world. And then you cut until finally you come to how many people are you going to actually interact with in the course of your life, right? And you've gone from half the population of the world, billions, right, to a couple
Mhm.
of thousand, right? So your free choice, you have a range of free choice, really, right? Much smaller than you thought you would, because you're born in a certain place and you have certain parents and you have certain experiences and you have certain education and you have certain things that happen to you and you have all the little accidents and incidents of life that shape who you are and what you are and your circumstances. And so within that, right, you have a kind of field. There's a relatively small field of free will within
Mhm.
a world that is out of your control, right?
Mhm.
That you don't control. You don't control, you don't control the weather. I can control whether I plant my seeds, but I can't control whether it rains.
Mhm.
I can't control whether it's going to be, I can't control whether it's going to be sunny, whether it's going to be a cold winter, it's going to be warm, but I can plant my seeds. And so there's those two things have to be negotiated somehow. There's no way that you can live without negotiating those two. The fact that you do have free will, that you have control over your life, and that that is a divine obligation to do that well, right? That we have reward and punishment, which is based on the idea that we have the ability to choose. How could you punish somebody when they didn't have the ability to choose? But that field of choice may be much smaller than you think. So that's my start.
Amazing. Yes, I think I understand what you're saying. And also, I guess it's important to think about freedom and what is freedom and how much freedom can be taken from us. What what is the power given to, what power do we have over our freedom? Because obviously, somebody might be forced into slavery, physical slavery, their freedom could be taken away from them. But is there a type of freedom that we have that nobody external to us has the power to take away from us? And what is that?
Well, if you read the biographies of anybody who's been in prison, you know, what you, I think that I think all of them, all the best ones, have the same theme, and that is that there is something that there's a kind of spiritual freedom that nobody can take away from you. There's a humanity that nobody can take away from you unless you let them. You read Elie Wiesel's probably a good example, somebody who was in the Holocaust. And he talks about, his own struggle, his own struggle to kind of keep his humanity and to and realizing that if I start to think of myself in the way that my captors think of me, right, there's not going to be anything left of me. Okay,
Mhm.
I'm not gonna. There's if even if I survive, there's not going to be anybody here.
Mhm.
And so I think there is that, and I think it's important for no, I think it's important for us, no matter our circumstances, to hold on to that idea of free will. What do I have control? What do I have control over?
That's
What?
really, really important. Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Always, always to ask that question. What can be taken away from me? And what's you know, what can I choose? Because I believe, obviously, if we believe in a just creator who's fair and compassionate and just, well, fair and just, same thing, I guess, and rewards and punishes in a way that's fair, then we would obviously, using our intellect, we would think, well, how can that work unless we truly have some sort of freedom over something and we're judged according to how we use that true freedom. So it's so important, isn't it, to ask, well, what is that true freedom? What do I really have freedom in? And as you said, we might have a certain personality, our nature that forces us, or our environmental factors that force us to, you know, or be more inclined perhaps to think and speak and behave in a certain way, which we might interpret to be our free choice, but actually might not actually be. It might just be because of what's happened to us, or because of, it might be because, we might, because of our external environment. And but there must be some place where we do have freedom of choice if there is this reward punishment, karma concept. And and perhaps, so my question is, because obviously in the Quran there's a quote, there's a verse which says, so let he something like, so let whoever wills to take a path to their Lord, to
Mhm.
choose a path to their Lord, but you will not will unless God wills. So,
Uh-oh.
so what's your understanding of what that could mean?
My understanding is that we live within God's will, right? That e- everything happens according to God's will. So both are true. Our free will is true, and the fact that everything that we do is in some sense willed by God is also true. And if I could figure that out and if I could explain it, I'm sure I would be a multi-gazillionaire, because I would be able to relieve the hearts of many a believer. But I don't think we're going to solve that one. I think that is, I think that's the paradox of being a human being. I think the paradox of being a human being is that we are this unique creature in God's world, and that we can't, you know, we can't just sort of sit back and say, okay, it's all the will of God, it's all the will of God, even though at some level we know that it is, because that's not our job, right? Our job is to become the best choosers and decision makers we can possibly be. Our job is to do the right thing as much as possible and to serve God. So that creates an interesting dilemma, but I
And I
don't
think
think there's a solution.
because we don't know the future, do we? If only God knows the future, He might know which decisions we're going to make, but we don't yet. So it's quite handy not knowing, so that we
Yeah.
can always strive to make the best decisions.
On a practical level,
Mhm,
Reb Nosson of Breslov gives a very good piece of advice, and I try to do this as much as possible. He said, when you're looking forward, right, when you're looking forward into the present and in the future, you should
mhm,
consider everything as free will.
yeah.
Right? So from here on, right, all my plans are based on free will. My
Mhm,
estimation of where I am and what's going on at this moment is on free
mhm,
will. When I'm looking at the past, he said,
mhm,
predestination, right? But everything
yeah.
that happened before, I should
Mhm,
consider as if it had to happen and that it was
mhm,
totally God's will. And that's just exactly how it had to be, right? And that even though I made a mistake, right?
mhm,
For example, right? I, you know, I was driving on the road, I was driving on the road, and I came to the crossroads, and I was supposed to go right, and instead I made a left, right? He says, God wanted you to make that left.
mhm,
Okay. That left, it was very important for you to go left because there was something in that direction that you needed to know, that you needed to learn, that you needed, even if it didn't feel so,
mhm.
so wonderful. And
Okay.
and that has served me, I think, very well.
I think
Um,
that's great piece of advice, definitely. So do we have the power to change our fate? So from an Abrahamic perspective, do we have the so let's say if it's written that we're going to die in a certain place at a certain time, do we have the power in free will to change that?
well, yes. I think very simply put, yes. I mean, there are, you know, we say we say to we say tefillah, when a person prays, when a person, gives charity, when a person does tshuva, when a person repents, when they turn themselves back to God, all of these things can change. Is it possible that we have a certain kind of natural trajectory to our life? Okay. Is it possible that there's such a thing as mazal, we call it, like your starred, your astrological fate? Is that possible? Sure, it's possible that there is such a thing. But we're able to change it, we're able to transform it through prayer, through charity,
Mhm,
and through repentance. We can change those things or not.
mhm,
Okay, or not. Because then you could say to me, but well, no, wait a second. Okay,
mhm,
this, okay, I knew this was coming down the lane. I could see it coming, right? And I did this and I did this and I did this and it still came, right? How so how can you tell me that? So yes, sometimes it works, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't work. And I
Mm,
think that's because sometimes sometimes that is so much what you need. And there's no way of knowing that, but you have to act all the time as
mhm,
if you have free will. Even if your experience tells you that your free
mhm,
will is so limited,
mhm,
even then you have to act as if you have free will.
mhm.
Because
At
that's
all,
the job.
at all times, and I think many people, like for example, I've spoken to Muslims who say, "Oh, I'm Muslim," which means to surrender to the will of God, and so I surrender my will to the will of God, and therefore, from now on, everything that happens is the will of God, and I don't, even the way I'm choosing to think and speak, even if it's not in a way that's appropriate or kind, it's all the will of God. Because I am a Muslim, and I've actually, had these conversations with people, and like you said, it can cause us to behave in a passive way and not take responsibility for our lives, which is, my understanding, is not what our creator wants from us. And actually it's that in every given moment in time, we have the free will to either choose to surrender to the will of God or to choose to serve our own ego and our own, choose to sort of go with our own understanding or desires, our animal or bodily desires, or choose to surrender and serve our creator in every moment. But it can't be just a one-off, that's it, now I don't no longer have the responsibility to, you know I don't understand how that can, that I don't, maybe it's true, maybe that's okay, God knows best, but it just doesn't make sense to me.
I think
It doesn't.
it's applying a really good concept in an
Not,
inappropriate place.
it's like using religion to do something, you know that goes against the religion, if you see what I mean.
Yeah,
It's like using a label or a name to take away that responsibility. But
you know,
I yeah.
maybe it's a mistake. I mean, maybe this is I'm trying to understand the error. I think part of the error is you think to yourself, okay,
Mhm,
uh I want to be it's so we say biyad Hashem. It's in the hands of God, right? It's in the hands of God, right? Muslims say qadr Allah, right? It's qadr Allah. It's the command of God, right? It's the will of God. So you want to be one of those people, right? I want to be one of those people who says qadr Allah all the time, right? You want to be one of those people, and I understand that, and that's great. But the problem is that should apply to your circumstances
mhm.
and not to your actions. So you
Yeah,
should
yeah.
say that about, right? If you want to say that about the rain, okay,
Mm.
you walk outside, you had a plan, right? You're going to the beach today, right? And you're all excited and you got your swimming costume, right? And you're ready for the beach. You got the towel over your shoulder. You go outside and it's dark and it's cold and it's pouring rain. Okay, then you say, Allah, right? God Hashem. Okay, this is
Yeah,
God's will, whatever. Okay. But but
yeah.
when it comes to your behavior, right, there's no place for saying that,
Or
right?
for your health, like, if you smoke and say, oh, if it's the will of God, then I'll get, lung cancer. and you
Right.
know that it's harmful,
Right.
then
And you are commanded to take care of yourself, right?
exactly.
You're
Mhm.
commanded to take care of yourself. So like, yes, so then it's no longer right. You can't put that on God. God put that on you. You can't put on God what God put on you, right?
Otherwise, there's no point of living in this world, is there really, is it, in your human body? Because what's the purpose of us being here if we didn't if we didn't have the potential to make some sort of difference? and in a positive way, because there's so much potential to cause harm. So there must be potential to do good as well in the same
There
way.
must be. I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for the human
And
potential to appear. But
and perhaps I've been reflecting on, we cannot, so let whoever chooses, whoever wills to take a path to their Lord, but you cannot will unless we cannot will unless our Creator wills. Perhaps what that one way of understanding that could be that God gives different levels of free will to different people. And actually, we should not judge, we should not assume that somebody else has the same amount of free will that we have.
Mhm.
So, if God wills us to have free will, then we have free will. But if He doesn't will us to have free will, it might appear that somebody has free will, but actually they don't. So perhaps when we see somebody behaving in a way that we wouldn't want to behave, we shouldn't assume that they're doing that out of their free will. We should always try to think good of them and try not to judge other people.
Right, and you
And
could, because in truth, you don't know their circumstances.
we don't
You
know.
know?
And actually,
Right,
maybe they don't have as much free will as they appear to have.
right,
But we do know our own level of free will in our conscious, in the way that we don't know. Actually, sometimes we assume that we have more than we actually have.
right.
But like you said, we can ask those questions, and when we find the power in ourselves to actually, the more we reflect, the more we ask ourselves those questions, I'm hoping that we will find the strength from our Creator. Perhaps we should pray that it is the Creator's will, that it becomes our will to choose a path to our Lord. And perhaps that's a good place to start.
Maybe that's a good place to start.
And to do as much good deeds and pray, and to do much good deeds as we feel we have the potential that we have to do, because like I don't know if it's the same as your understanding, but in the Quran it's my understanding from what it says is that the more good we do, the easier it will be to do more good, and the more we choose not to treat others how we want to be treated, the more we choose to do to others what we don't like, what we know that we don't like to be done to us, i.e., disrespect them or treat them with harshness, or in a way that we wouldn't want. If we knowingly do this, the more we do it, the more difficult it will be not to do it, if that makes sense. Or like the more difficult it will be to do good, and then the less free will we will have to then do good. So actually, if we want to have more free will to be able to make the right decisions and to be able to treat each other how we want to be treated, then we should just do more good.
The more
That
good.
doesn't
And,
but
and
yeah, do more
and
good.
honestly, I mean, at the end of the, we also have a thing, mitzvah gereret mitzvah, right? Which means a mitzvah brings a mitzvah, right? A commandment brings a commandment, and a sin brings a sin. There's a kind of trajectory, and once we start if you all you have to do is put yourself in the trajectory, right? You start doing something which is good, using your free will, and then once you're using your free will in good ways, right? The
Yeah.
Creator looks at you and goes, ah, my trusted servant, right? Using
It
it,
gets easier, and
right?
it gets easier.
Let's broaden this person's field of free will so that they can do more. So I think really it is a good thing to pray that we do good, okay? That we do good. At the end of the day, at the end of the day, I wish when if I could take these little broadcasts of ours, I could just say do good, do good. Do good." That would because that's really at the end of the day what it's all about is using
And
your free will
yeah,
to good do good things, treat people well, and that will open up avenues avenues for you to be able to do more and better, and that's what we all want.
and all of these concepts, like all of these things are free, like kindness is free, gratitude is free, you know, patience, it's not something that we buy with silver or gold. knowledge and wisdom is free for those who have the intellect, for all of us who have the intellect to choose to use our intellect and search for it.
So free
And
choice is free. So so you can you don't have to go to your local, like the supermarket to buy it. Okay. You don't have to go to the jewelry store. You don't have to go anywhere. Okay. It's free. It's right here in front of you. I wish everybody, this is my blessing to you. I wish for everybody that you should have a beautiful week and a week of beautiful, amazing choices. The best okay, everything free choices. And if something came your way that's not so great, okay, that was the will of God. It's gone. It's goodbye. But moving forward, I should do good. Lale should do good, and we should all do good. Have a beautiful, 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 beautiful week.
Amen.